Okay, so we'll start lying down. So if you come to a comfortable position on your back, you might have knees bent or legs outstretched, whatever feels right for you as you just come to settle. Making any adjustments you need to, allowing the body to settle. Noticing all the points of contact that your body has with the ground. And if you haven't already and it feels comfortable to, then closing your eyes or softening your gaze. And using the next few exhales to increase that sense of connection between the body and the ground beneath you. So a sense on the exhale of those points of contact that your body has with the ground, of those points softening, releasing, spreading. If it feels comfortable to you, you might extend the length of the exhale a little, so it's a little longer than the inhale, just taking a little bit more time over the exhale. So you can really explore that sense of the body releasing into the ground. And continuing using the exhale in this way, but now also using the inhale to start to find some spaciousness, some expansion in the body. So just noticing, first of all, as you inhale, any parts of the body that might rise or expand on the inhale. You're not forcing anything here, just noticing maybe a rise of the chest. It might be a rise of the belly. Maybe finding an awareness of an increased space between the ribs expanding on the inhale. So continuing with the exhale to find that sense of softening and release. And again, if it feels okay, then you might extend the length of the inhale now too. So if you've already extended the exhale, then you're matching the length of the inhale to the exhale now, just taking a little more time over both now. And as you extend that inhale, just really finding a sense of breathing into the space that you're finding in the body. So try and stay with the breath and with the body rather than kind of moving into the mind. So you're not overthinking this, just naturally finding space in the body wherever that might be. Naturally finding a softening and release in the body wherever that might be. A few more rounds of breath like this. And now releasing any sense of controlling the breath. Just coming now to the breath, just allowing the breath to settle back to its natural rhythm. Taking a moment to be with the breath now as it comes in, as it goes out. If you want to set an intention for your practice today, then take a moment to do that now. Just seeing what, if anything, comes up for you. Okay. And then if you haven't already, bend the knees and bring the soles of the feet to the mat. And just take a moment here with soles of the feet and knees at least hip width apart, maybe a little wider, and just start to ease into the hips a little with some windscreen wiper type movements with the knees, just gently easing the knees, both knees over to one side, just coming to rest on the edges of the feet as you do that, to wherever feels comfortable. Inhaling back to center, exhaling over to the other side. Just taking a little bit of easing out through the hips. Okay, and then coming back to center. And then bring the soles, keeping the soles of the feet on the mat, but bring the feet together. So knees are still bent. Feet are together, so the inner edges of the feet are alongside each other now. And just checking with your arms for a moment. So have arms resting alongside you on the ground. And maybe see if you might be able to just have the upper arms placed in such a way that the inner creases of the elbows are facing up towards the ceiling. And in doing so, you're helping the shoulders to broaden and release down into the ground a little more. So the arms are supporting the shoulders in doing that. So the arms are likely to be alongside the body, but just out at a slight angle from the body as well, rather than straight down. Just bringing a bit more broadness across the chest. Take an inhale, breathing into the space across the chest. And as you exhale, draw the knees out to the side. So right knee out to the right, left knee out to the left, coming into Baddha Konasana. So allowing your feet to come to rest on the outer edges of the feet. Soles of the feet can rest together. We're bringing some opening to the hips and the groins here. If you feel any discomfort in the lower back, see how it feels to take the feet a little further away from the body so you can get a bit more contact of the lower back with the mat. If you have lots of props available to you, which might be cushions, pillows, bolsters, whatever, then you could take a more supportive version of this by taking cushions or bolsters underneath the thighs or the knees. That might be for another time if you're watching this on record. Take a few more breaths here. And again, if it feels helpful to extend the inhale and the exhale, then do. Breathing into the space across the chest. And as you exhale, see if you can come back to that sense of the body softening and releasing into the ground. So all those points of the body in contact with the ground. And also using the exhales to see if you can explore a sense of the hips softening a little more, maybe the knees releasing down a little more, but you're experiencing that as a sense of release, not anything that you're forcing here. Okay, and then bring your hands to the outside of your thighs. Use an inhale to draw the knees back together. So soles of the feet are still on the mat. Use your next exhale to straighten your left leg. So the left leg is now resting long on the mat. Right knee is still bent. And just checking with the right foot. So have that as close to the left leg, depending on the bend that you've got in the knee here and how close or far the foot is from the body, then the right foot might be alongside the left thigh or the knee or further down, whatever feels right for you. Take an inhale, still have the arms in that same position with that slight rotation in the upper arms. As you exhale, draw the right knee out to the side. So coming back into that Baddha Konasana position on the right side now, coming over onto the outer edge of the right foot. And the sole of the right foot can just rest gently against the left leg. Push out through the heel of the left foot so that you're bringing more stability to the left side of the body here to support you as you explore the right hip and the right groin, releasing a little more as the knee softens and releases out to the right. See if you can have a sense of the left hip drawing down into the mat. So we're essentially taking a tree pose here, lying down. So without the challenge of the balance, but we're exploring tree pose from a different kind of orientation here. So keep going in the same way as you did in our Baddha Konasana, using the exhale to see if you can find a little more sense of softening and release. Using the inhales to find that expansion across the chest. So it might help to visualize a sense of that expansion starting in the center of the chest and radiating outwards, feeling that increased space between the upper ribs as the chest expands. And on the exhales, as you're exploring that release, maybe it might feel helpful to just think about the line that you're creating along the right thigh from the outer edge of the right hip through to the right knee. So a kind of diagonal line there. Can you find, even if it's just a really subtle sense on each exhale, of the knee drawing away from the hip a little more? So almost as if you're kind of increasing the length or the distance between hip and knee. But keep that soft. So again, you're not bringing in you're not bringing in sort of effort here, but that more it's just exploring whether there's scope for a little more release. A few more breaths here. Keep pushing out through the left heel. See if you can have a sense of that left hip drawing down. Right. And then using an inhale to draw the right knee back up. You could have hands against the right thigh if that feels helpful with that. And then just rebend the left knee, bring sole of the foot to the mat. And then on an exhale, straighten out the right leg, pushing out through the right heel now, preparing to come to the other side. So take a moment to just check in with that right leg, that feels comfortable, and that you've got the left foot alongside the right leg. And then whenever you're ready, use an exhale to ease the left leg out to the side. So exploring the same on the other side now. Just observing, noticing, you might feel quite different on this side. Again, breathing into space across the chest. Exhaling, seeing if you can find a little more release. So that release might be a physical movement. It might be a subtle sense of tension releasing a little. It might be a more energetic sense. Check in with the right side, see if you can have a sense of the right hip drawing down into the ground a little more. So again, that might not be a physical movement, but more an energetic sense of the right hip drawing down towards the ground, pushing out through the right heel to help you stay active there and rooted on the right side. A few more breaths here. Okay, and then inhaling the left knee back up to center. And then you can use the next inhale to rebend the right leg. And then just taking a few more, so taking the feet wider apart now and taking a few more of those windscreen wiper movements to just ease out through the hips again. And then we're going to make our way up to seated. So you can do that in whatever way feels right for you. One option, if you're looking for something a little more dynamic, depends on what you want from your practice right now, would be to take a rock and roll along the spine to get there. So if this feels okay for the spine and for the neck, of course, then you could bring the knees in towards the chest, take the hands behind the thighs, and then use a drawing of the knees further in towards you to start to create some momentum so that you can then rock along the spine a few times, keeping the chin drawing in towards the chest until eventually you come up to seated with one shin in front of the other and then easing into your Sukhasana. So however you're making your way to Sukhasana, we'll meet there, taking any height that you might want underneath the sit bones here, so that we can continue with that exploration of the knees, releasing, so that they're now releasing down in order to just invite a little more openness around the hips and the groins. Have a little bit of a wriggle on the sit bones, having a sense of the sit bones feeling equally weighted and rooted on both sides. And then from here, we'll take some cat-cow movements. So set up for that by bringing your hands onto your shins or front shin. So it depends on exactly how you're positioned in Sukhasana. For me, I kind of tend to end up with both hands on one on the shin, one more on the ankle. But really what you're looking for is for your hands to be a little less than shoulder width apart here, and that they've got something that they've got some purchase against, that they can just press against to support you here. So taking whatever feels right for you there. And then on your next inhale, use that slight press of the hands against the legs to help you draw the shoulders back to create space for the chest to draw forwards and up. As you do that, the tailbone draws back. And then as you exhale, round through the shoulders, so you can let the hands just kind of draw around the legs a little to create that space as you then draw the spine back. So you're kind of coming onto the back of the sit bones as you do this, tailbone's drawing forwards, the chin can drop. So you're inhaling, shoulders are drawing back, chest drawing forwards. I'll just show you from the side so you can see the shape you're making with the spine. And then exhaling, rounding the shoulders forward, drawing navel in towards spine to help draw the middle of the spine back. And settling into this movement, matching your movement to your breath. Again, maybe extending the length of the inhale and the exhale if that feels okay. Lovely. So nice to remind ourselves as well that these cat-cow stretches can be done really well from seated. You can also do them from sitting in a chair, and if we're wanting to keep that sort of hip opening, then you could do it in a chair and just take the knees wide. Lovely. Okay. And now just coming to a pause and just moving your hands now so that hands are on the knees. So one hand on each knee, and then coming back to your cat-cow stretches. So again, you can let the hands move, particularly when you come into that, the sort of the cat stretch as you're drawing the spine back. You'll probably need a bit of space for the hands to move so that you've got the space to roll the shoulders forward, drawing the shoulder blades away from each other. But by moving the hands slightly, we're starting to target a slightly different part of the spine. So a little bit more into the upper spine here. Lovely. A few more rounds like this. Great. And then coming back to stillness. And we're going to make our way up to a downward dog here now. So coming onto your all fours, you know, so you can kind of mindfully do that from Sukhasana if you're orientated. The right way to do this, so you can draw the hands forwards, come onto the knees that way. So either we'll come up to downward dog, or if it feels better for your practice, you could come into a wide-legged child's pose. So just showing you that first. There's always the option to come down, so we'll be making our way down to that anyway after the downward dog. So in wide-legged child's pose, you've got the knees about mat width apart, thumb back towards the heels, forehead to the mat, or you could have the forearms underneath the head, if that helps to draw the bum back towards the heels more. Reminder, if you've got support available to you, you can take that between bum and heels. So that's an option. If you're feeling okay to come into downward dog, then just setting up for that from all fours, maybe taking the hands a little further forward so shoulders are no longer directly above the wrists. Then tucking the toes, fingers are spread nice and wide. And then as you inhale, push the mat away from you with your hands as you lift the knees, and then draw the hips up and back. Coming into your downward dog. Taking a few breaths here where you're really focusing first of all on lifting the hips high, letting the head hang heavy, visualizing the distance from the outer edge of each wrist to the outer edge of each hip, and seeing if you can have a sense of increasing that distance. So on each inhale, as you lift the hips high, and as you push the ground away from you with your hands. So have the knees as bent as you need to facilitate that. And then if it feels okay, you can start to pedal the feet a little here. So alternately drawing one heel and the other heel down so that you're inviting some opening in the backs of the legs. And you might also just exaggerate the sway of the hips as you do this so that we're easing into the hips a little more too. Great, lovely. And then coming back to stillness here. And on your next exhale, draw your knees back down to the mat. And then use another exhale to draw your bum back towards your heels. So you're coming into that child's pose. So see if you can take the knees to that mat width apart or whatever feels comfortable for you, just so that we're keeping a little bit of opening around the hips here. So if it's comfortable for you to have the arms outstretched with hands in contact with the mat, then great, so that we're really facilitating as much as we can that lengthening in the spine. If you need to bring forearms under the head so that the head and the neck feel comfortable, and so that you're helping the bum to draw back towards the heels, then definitely do that. We're still bringing some length to the spine there. Breathing into the space in the back body here. And then on each exhale, seeing if you can have a sense of the hips releasing, softening a little more. So again, that might be a physical movement. It might be much more a sense of tension releasing from the hips a little more. Might be both. Couple more breaths here. And then bringing your hands alongside your head, palms facing down. Use an inhale to draw yourself back up to your all fours. And then we'll make our way back up to downward dog. So we'll take a few breaths in downward dog if that feels okay for you. If not, then you can stay in all fours and take some cat-cows if that feels all right, or you could draw back to that extended child's pose. Otherwise, if you're feeling okay for downward dog, then drawing back up into your downward dog. Take a few more breaths here. If you're not already, then again, maybe lengthening the inhale and the exhale. Maybe you might work on that rotation of the upper arm. So as if the armpits are trying to face in towards each other, so that you're bringing more broadness across the back and also more stability through the arms and the hands. If you're working on that, see if you can really have a sense of that movement being initiated and supported by the upper back muscles, so it's not all pressure on the shoulder joints. Great. So we're going to come into, to make our way into a low lunge. So you can either take that from downward dog or from all fours, whatever feels right for you. So I'll demonstrate the movement from all fours. I think if you're taking from downward dog, I think you're probably familiar with what you're doing. So taking an inhale to prepare, and then as you exhale, you're drawing the right foot forward. So if you're coming from all fours, you can circle the right foot out to the side and then shuffle it into place. Just lift the right hand up for a moment so it can come in between the hands. So eventually we're all meeting with right foot forward and coming up onto our fingertips or onto fists if that feels easier. If pressure on the knee doesn't feel great, then you could come into a kind of high lunge here by tucking the back toes and drawing the back knee up. You can also fold the mat over to bring a bit more cushioning to the back knee. A few more breaths here, inhaling into the chest to bring a bit more lift to the chest and therefore length to the spine. On your exhale, maybe see if you might be able to release down through the pelvis, the hips a little more, let them descend a little bit more. And what you're wanting to feel here is some openness, a little bit of stretch and openness in the left thigh and the left groin. So exploring sinking down through the hips and the pelvis to help find that. And you can either stay here, working here for a few more breaths, or maybe if it feels okay, on your next inhale, you can press into the front foot, draw the chest forwards and up, bring hands onto the hips. Then using the next exhale to see if you might allow the hips, the pelvis to release a little more. And you can either stay here or inhale, sweep the arms up. So these are all options to explore. You might explore one, decide that's not your practice today, and come back to one of the other options. Maybe see if there's scope for the back hip to draw forwards and the front hip to draw back a little more so that they're a little more aligned, and in doing so, maybe noticing any realignment of the chest. Lovely. So inhaling up to that length in the side body, lifting the chest, exhaling, finding release down through the pelvis and the hips. Right. Okay, so if you're raised up here, use your next exhale to draw the chest forwards and down. Plant the palms of both hands. We're going to come back into a downward dog. So you can either do that via an all fours or straight into downward dog. If you're wanting to go straight into downward dog, then inhale the back knee up now. Otherwise, keep it down. Really press into the hand, so as if you're trying to push the mat away from you to give you a bit more space, and then use an exhale to draw the right foot back. So option here, if there's not that space to draw the right foot straight back, would be to shuffle the right foot out and round, so kind of reverse the movement that we took before. So either way, you're then either coming back to an all fours or straight back up to downward dog. If you're in all fours, then use an inhale to raise the hips up and back. So we meet in downward dog. Just a reminder that at any point, other alternatives here to downward dog would be to lower the knees and take some cat-cows, and or to come back to that extended child's pose with the knees wide. Take a few more breaths here. So we're using, whichever pose you're in, we're using this as our pause, if you like, what we'll come back to. So just check in with the body. Just notice how the breath is, how the mind is. Maybe you might extend the exhale a little more for the last few breaths here. Perhaps even breathe out through the mouth. Great. And then we'll prepare to step through with the left foot now. So I'll take that step through from downward dog this time, just for clarity, but of course you can lower the knees and take the step through from all fours if that's what's right for you. So if you're taking it from downward dog, you're inhaling, preparing, looking to the space between your hands, and then as you exhale, draw the left knee towards the nose and travel forward into a kind of high plank here. So shoulders are above wrist, let the knee come with you, and then let the foot land wherever it lands, and then you can shuffle it forwards into place. And then exhale the back knee down. Option to keep the back knee up if that feels more comfortable for the knee. Once we're all in that low lunge, then coming up onto fingertips or onto wrists. If you've got blocks that you can use, you could bring those under the hands as well, or hardback books, to just bring a little bit more height, so that then on your inhale you can breathe into the chest, bring a bit more lift to the chest, a bit more length to the spine. Take a few breaths here to just check in with your low lunge. So just check that there is a sense of that you're bringing a bit more opening across that right groin, a little, inviting a little stretch into the thigh. So making sure that that feels welcome, like a release, nothing that you're forcing here. Great. So you can either stay working here or use your next inhale, pressing into the front foot to draw the chest forwards and up. Bring hands onto the hips. And use it with hands on the hips, use that to help you draw the shoulders back and down so you can bring a bit more lift to the chest. As you exhale, can you let the hips, the pelvis release a little more? Maybe exploring whether there's any scope for the back hip to draw forwards, front hip to draw back, so that the hips are a little more aligned, so that the chest is a little more aligned with the front edge of your mat. Option to stay here, or maybe explore inhaling the arms up. And wherever you are now, using the inhale to find lift and length, so that's lift into the chest, length in the side body, and to find release on the exhale, so releasing down through the hips, through the pelvis. Super. Wonderful. Okay, so if you're raised up here, then use your next exhale to draw the chest forwards and down. Plant the hands. And then we'll come back to downward dog one more time. So if you're coming straight into downward dog here, then you're pressing the hands down, really pushing into the mat as you inhale the back knee up. And then exhale, draw the front foot back, and then hips straight up and back, coming to your downward dog. It might be that you take a couple of breaths in downward dog and then draw the knees down to the mat if it feels better for your practice to take some cat-cows or to come into extended child's pose. Again, just taking whatever option feels right for you, so that we can use this as a little bit of a reset back into a more symmetrical pose after the asymmetry of the low lunge. And just take a moment here to observe the body, the breath, the mind. Now, if you're in downward dog, start to walk your hands back towards your feet. We're making our way into a forward fold. Gradually allowing the weight to come fully down into the feet, keep the hips lifting high, eventually releasing all weight through the hands so that the arms, the shoulders, the hands, the head, the neck can all hang heavy here. So if you've been in child's pose or all fours, then making your way into a forward fold. So you could do that via downward dog, or you might make your way to standing and then fold into a forward fold. Whatever feels right for you, so we can meet in downward dog. So on your inhales, bringing a lift to the hips here, drawing navel in towards spine to help with that, so that you're creating as much space as you can for the upper body to really hang heavy here. So knees can be as bent as you need them to be, and it can feel quite helpful to start with knees a little bent, so you're bringing that real weightiness down through the feet, a sense of being really grounded through the feet, and then using the inhales to find a sense of breathing up through the feet, all the way up through the legs, up to the hips lifting high, so that then on your exhales, you can really find that sense of release down through the shoulders, the neck, the head. So continuing for a few breaths here, working actively in your forward fold with the breath. Inhaling, bringing that lift to the hips. And as you focus on that lift in the hips on the inhale, see if you can find not just the sense of the hips lifting, but also if you imagine the outer edges of the hips, that on that lift, the outer edges are drawing away from each other a little more. So there's a broadening at the very top of the hips or the very base of the back. If it feels helpful for the last few breaths, you might extend the exhale, so you're really finding that sense of releasing through the upper body, letting it all go. Maybe breathe out through the mouth. Right. Okay, on your next inhale, bring the palms of the hands to rest on the front of the legs, wherever you need to, so that the upper body is then at right angles to your legs. So you've got a kind of a flat back. And then use your next inhale to see if there's any scope for you to draw the shoulders back a little more, so that there's a sense of the chest drawing forwards a bit more. So you're still keeping that flat back, but again, it might not be so much a physical movement as an energetic sense of the chest drawing forwards and finding length in the spine. Keep the head and the neck in a neutral position, so you're not kind of looking up here, you're keeping the back of the neck long. Take a few breaths here. Great. Okay, and then use your next exhale to come back down into your forward fold. Couple of breaths here. And then as you next inhale, hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and up. So keep it drawing forwards as it comes up to keep the lower back long. You could sweep the arms up if you want, or have hands on the hips, coming up to standing. And then bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. So thumbs are resting against the center of the chest, coming into your mountain pose, into Tadasana. And just take a moment here in your mountain pose. Just a very quick check-in with the physical aspects of the pose. Maybe see if there's scope for you to draw the tailbone down a little more, so you feel that tilt in the pelvis. Maybe feel a switching on of the glutes, perhaps of the thigh muscles to support you there. See if there's any scope for the shoulders to just draw back and down a little to bring broadness across the chest. Back of the neck is long, so might be scope for the chin to draw down a little to help with that. And then closing the eyes or softening the gaze for a moment here. Just taking a moment, if you set an intention at the start of your practice, to recall that intention now. Okay, and then gently releasing the hands down alongside you and opening the eyes or lifting the gaze. Staying with your feet hip width apart, and just bring your hands onto your hips. Just check in with the weight coming down through the feet. Just really finding that sense of weight coming down evenly through both feet, through the front and the back of each foot. And then on your next inhale, just explore lifting the heels up off the mat. So that might be just a little lift of the heels, or you might explore drawing them higher. You might come up onto the balls of the foot, just seeing what feels right for you. Use your next exhale to lower the heels back down to the mat. And then keep going with this movement, with the real focus being on trying to match your movement to your breath as much as you can. So as you inhale, you're raising the heels. And when you get to the top of that, when you get to the top of your inhale, you get to the top of the movement. And then as you exhale, as you get to the bottom of that exhale, that coincides with the heels coming back down onto the mat. Find a point to gaze at a few feet in front of you to help with balance here and to help keep the mind steady as you come into this balance. Great. So continue working here if this feels right for you. Other things that you can explore here would be to add in a movement of the arms. So you might, as you inhale, you're focusing then on lifting the heels and at the same time raising the arms up. Seeing if you can match both movements so they coincide and that they both coincide with the breath. And then as you exhale, you're drawing the arms down, seeing if you can match those movements and match both movements to the breath. So as well as working on balance here, this is a really lovely exercise for helping to work on proprioception, on our ability to have a real sense of where our body is in the space that we're in. And you could, to sort of keep the challenge going here, see how slowly you can take the movement. So the slower we take the movement, the more we're working on balance. You could also maybe, if this is feeling quite secure and stable, you could maybe see how it feels to take a few repetitions with your eyes closed, noticing how that feels. So any versions of what we've worked on here, and just being prepared, as is the way, particularly when we're working with balance, to kind of come in and out of this, to come to different versions of it, just see how it's feeling for you. And noticing, observing what comes up in the mind here as well. Lovely, just a few more rounds here. Seeing if you can take it as slowly as you can. That's great. Lovely, Jill. Super. Yeah, great. Great. And then we'll come back to center back to stillness. And just a little bit more work with balance here, if this feels okay for you. So if you know that working with balance that you do need to take some support, in order to be safe in your practice, do feel free to have something to hand. But just reflecting on what's going on there for you. So just to reiterate, when we're working on balance, fully expecting to fall in and out of balances. So as long as that's safe for you to do, then I'd really encourage you to keep working with the breath and the body to find that balance, however wobbly that might be. So just again, coming back to your mountain pose, your Tadasana, drawing the tailbone down, feeling really rooted down through both feet. And then consciously bringing your weight more fully into your left foot, becoming weightier through the left foot. And you might even bring a slight bend to the left leg to help with that sense of weightiness. Become really light on the right foot now. Bring your hands onto your hips. And then on your next inhale, if it feels okay for you, so have that point to gaze at a few feet in front of you, then raise your right knee up, any amount up to hip height. So you might have the toes just a little way off the floor, or you might raise to hip height. And then use an exhale to explore drawing the right knee out towards the right. You can either keep hands on hips, or you might take the right hand onto the right knee to help with that. So you're not obviously forcing anything here, but just a gentle presence of the right hand might help you here. So we're inviting a bit more opening around the hip and the groin again. See if you can really have a sense of the left hip staying in place. So just watching out for the tendency of the left hip to want to kind of follow you round here. Don't let it, even if it means that, the amount you're drawing out to the side changes quite a bit. Super. And you could play around here. So we're taking a kind of a version of tree pose here, if you like, as in we're bringing that opening around the groin. If this is feeling quite stable for you, you could have a play around with the arms here as well, raising them, bringing your hands together maybe. Again, you could also throw in that challenge of seeing how it feels with eyes closed, if that feels safe for you to have a go at, just taking a little bit longer to play with the balance on this side. Lovely. You're very welcome for the last few moments of working on this side to come into full tree pose if you want to, and it's already in your practice. So we're not specifically working on it in the practice today, but if this is feeling great and you're thinking, oh, I'd love to be in full tree pose right now, feel free to. Just kind of bearing in mind that the point of the practice today is to find some opening around the groin and the hip and to work on balance. If you are coming in, lovely. So if you are coming into tree pose, just ensuring that the foot is resting either against the shin or against the thigh, but not against the knee. So better to come down to the shin than be on the knee, on the kind of more fragile knee. Super. And you could try with eyes closed if you want a bit more fun. Lovely. Okay, so if you're in whatever version of the pose you're in, seeing if you can exit it gracefully. So you can use an an inhale to draw back to center, and then an exhale to gently place the foot back down, drawing the arms down. Let's do that too. And then settling back into your Tadasana, into your mountain pose for a moment, just using a few breaths here to reset, to check in, to come back to that symmetrical pose after an asymmetrical one, closing the eyes or softening the gaze, taking a moment to notice how the breath is, notice what's going on in the mind. And then when you're ready, prepare to come to the other side. Watch out for the mind racing ahead, that it knows what position we need to come into, but take your time to consciously bring the weight fully down through the right foot. And you can even take time to visualize the movement that you're going to make with your the left side of the body now before you make it. And take time to become light on the left foot. before you then, in your own time, so you might still be settling into that now, but whenever you're ready, you're then inhaling the foot up, any amount. So you might be working with coming up onto the tiptoe and just working there. Or you might be playing around with raising the knee. And this knee is raised. And after a few breaths there, so do take time to just work with the balance first of all, before you then explore on an exhale, drawing the knee out to the side. And then again, check in with the right side that the right hip hasn't followed the left around. Super. Again, options to explore raising the arms up. Options to explore eyes closed, maybe. Keep coming, lovely. That's super. So great for helping develop our ability to focus and concentrate, working on balances. Because of course, when we're balancing, it's hard for the mind to focus on anything else. So a great way of sort of training the mind to focus. Always great to bring a bit of a sense of humor and humility to working on balance poses as well. So if you're not already and you want to take sort of more of a tree pose expression now, then feel free to do that. Again, just making sure that you stay away from the knee, so the foot isn't resting against the knee. This is just an invitation. So doing whatever feels most helpful for you in terms of inviting that opening around the groin and the hip, as well as giving you an opportunity to work on balance. Just the last few moments here. Great. And then preparing to come out, to seeing if you can do that mindfully, gracefully. So using an inhale to draw back to center, and then an exhale to lower the foot and maybe the arms back down. Lovely. Great. And then having a little bit of a shake out if that feels helpful. Maybe a bit of a wiggle of the hips. And then we'll make our way down onto our backs. So meeting on backs, if you want to take any flow to get there, feel free to take your own flow, but just knowing that we'll meet on our backs, having the knees bent, soles of the feet in contact with the mat. And then when you're ready, drawing knees into the chest, so you can take the hands around the knees or interlace the fingers and bring them around the shins to help draw the knees in. Taking a few breaths here. If it feels good to take a rock from side to side, if that feels nice in terms of a kind of a massage out of the lower back, feel free to do that. It might feel much more helpful to be in stillness here, so just taking whatever feels right for you. And then coming back to center, back to stillness if you're in movement. Keep the right knee hugging in and let the left leg come out long on your next exhale. So the left leg is then resting long on the mat. The right knee is still hugging in. And then keep the left hand on the right knee. Let the right arm come to rest on the ground at shoulder height. So it can either be outstretched or you can have the elbow bent, depending on the room that you have available. Take an inhale. And then as you exhale, draw the right knee over to the left. So the right hip lifts up off the mat and comes to stack above the left hip. The right knee is over to the left. It doesn't need to be resting against anything here. It's supported by the hips being supported. Just taking a few breaths here, breathing into the space in the side body and the space across the chest here. So the left leg doesn't need to be particularly active, it's just resting out long on the mat. See if on your exhales you can have a sense of the hips releasing a little more. Then inhaling back to center. Hugging the knee in one more time. And then exhaling the right leg out long and using an inhale to draw the left knee in now, preparing to come to the other side. So having the right hand on the left knee, having the left arm resting out on the ground and using an exhale then to draw the knee over to the other side, letting the hip lift up, stacking above the other hip. Take a few breaths here. And now inhaling back to center. Hugging the knee in one more time. And then when you're ready, making your way into your Shavasana. So coming into whatever position feels right for you, grabbing anything you need to, any extra layers or anything to cover your eyes with. Coming to a position that feels comfortable for you, where you can start to release. So coming back to that sense of releasing down through all those points of contact that your body has with the ground now. So taking the time to notice those points of contact that your body has with the ground. And using your exhales to really find a sense of them softening and releasing, allowing the ground to hold you now. So if this feels okay for you, then you might want to take your Shavasana today in this way, maybe extending the exhale a little if that feels good. As you find that sense of softening, releasing on each exhale. Maybe thinking to yourself on the exhale, I am letting go. If this doesn't feel right for your practice today, then please feel free to take whatever Shavasana practice does feel right for you. That might be coming to the breath, just being with the breath now in its natural rhythm as it comes in, as it goes out. Just knowing that this space is held for you while you take your practice in this way. Now starting to bring some deeper breaths into your body. Slowly bringing some movement back to the body. You might wiggle fingers and toes, perhaps rotate wrists and ankles. Gradually easing into any movements, any stretches, sighs, anything that feels good as you bring your full awareness back to your body. And slowly taking your time to make your way back up to seated, keeping your eyes closed or having your gaze soft as you do that. Coming to any comfortable seated position, just so that we can close our practice together. Once you're seated again, just taking a moment, if you set an intention at the start of your practice, to recall that intention now. And bringing palms of the hands together in front of the heart. Taking a moment to be grateful to yourself for showing up to this practice today. And a moment for us to be grateful that we have this practice of yoga available to us, and that we have this way of connecting and practicing together. And I invite you to think of anything else in your life that you're grateful for right now. Bowing your head down towards your fingertips. Namaste. Releasing whenever you're ready. Thank you, guys.